Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Fully Human Connections podcast. I'm your host, King. I'm joined by my co-host, Reggie. How you doing today, Reggie?
I'm doing okay, King. We have a little bit of technical difficulties. That's why we're starting late. And there's a little bit of feedback when you speak, a little bit of like echo after you speak, too. I just heard that now for the first time.
Okay. See if I can. I got with the background noise. How about us? Make it any difference?
No, it's still doing it.
Well, let me see if this adjusts the mic. I'm adjusting the mic's volume, so let's see this. Has any okay, am I still kind of?
Yeah, it's still providing some feedback. Just your voice coming back through a second time.
I'll turn this fan off. Try it now. So is my voice provide feedback again still?
Yeah, and it sounds like there's some kind of interference. I can hear what you're saying, but it's kind of fed back a second time. And now you're muted.
Not sure why that's the case. How about now? Am I any better now?
Right now, it's better.
All right. Well, hopefully it stays better. Let's see if we can continue the show. We apologize for the technical challenges we're having this morning. This seems to be a challenging morning. You know, I always have to thank God for the challenges. There's growth somewhere in there. Just got to have the faith to figure it out. So with that being said, I share what my gratitude today is that I'm alive, I'm healthy, I can see, hear, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have a sound mind. Another 24 hours to pursue my purpose in life. Mother's not doing 100%. She's had to go to the hospital yesterday. Actually, you know, I was planning to be off today. I thought I was going to take her to the doctor, but she ended up going to the hospital yesterday. So, so I got a call from my brother at 10. He's saying that she's still kind of doped out right now, and he'll give me an update later on. So grateful that she's still with us, and I'm pretty sure she'll push through that. I'm finally grateful for the opportunity to be on this call with you and continue to look for ways we can become more fully human.
Yeah. So sorry to hear about your mom. And I'm getting my voice coming back to me as I speak. So it's coming through my speakers. I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah, because you sound fine on this end.
Okay. Well, I'll be fine. I'll just ignore myself. So I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I hope she'll be okay. I'm grateful, as always, for technology, which allows us to do this. For my indoor plumbing, food in my refrigerator, the electricity, which keeps it running, and reasonably healthy, sound mind and body as well.
All right. So what's your spiritual energy number?
So I'm a 10, but I'm definitely choosing a 10. There's been some challenges this morning. The type of things that it's easy to drain energy, but what we're doing is important. And so I'm choosing to be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a 10 as well. Like you said, this morning's definitely started off with some challenges yesterday, more so. And then this morning kind of right some ships or eliminate some of the anxiety. But I still got myself mentally and worked out, got to walk in. So realize as long as I stay true to giving myself that, because I would hate to deny myself that and then have to deal with everything else. For those are the things that would take me away from a 10 for sure. Yeah. That's the path away from 10. Aware now of those behaviors. So I know I got to be much more intentional on these kind of days.
Yeah.
With that being said, what do you feel is our topic for today's discussion?
Yeah. So we're continuing what we've been doing for almost 2 years now is speaking about healing America's narrative. The 2020 book, subtitled "The Feminine, the Masculine, and Our Collective National Shadow." And what we've been doing for the last, I think, 2 weeks now, we're taking a real close look at conversation. Doing more good than harm in conversation. And we introduced last week speaking about the importance of knowing oneself in conversation, knowing what my biases are and my cultural giving. Today we want to begin by focusing on preconception, judgment, and assumption conversation. If depending on why we're entering into a good conversation, we might be trying to win. We might have certain beliefs about the other person. Those are preconceptions. We might have judgments about the other person, and we might have assumptions. And assumptions are not necessarily bad, but they're bad if two things are true about. One is if we have assumptions, and we don't know we have them. That's not good. And the second is we have assumptions, whether we know them or not, and they're not true. So we assume something that if we in fact tested it, wouldn't be true. So those all get in the way of a good conversation. So what we want to do is engage with this today in the context of what's going on in the country. The inability, it seems, for people who disagree to really aid in debate, opposing conversation in good faith in a way that affects people. We can see it in the U.S. Congress. We can see it in campuses around the country where there are protests and arrests made. Israeli Palestinian conflict in Gaza. And exactly one bit of news at Brown University, which seems like an exception, where university administration and two groups protest, a Jewish group and a pro-Palestinian group, agreed to meet the administrators in conversations around divesting the university from investment in companies that support Israel military. And the students agreed to take down the encampment based on the promise they're going to be having conversations this month at the university. For some reason, Brown seems to be the only university in the United States that's been able to navigate that. So that's just one immediate example. And something, and the feedback just stopped, thank God, because I was hearing myself. And as much as I like myself, it was really difficult to constantly hear it coming back. So I don't know if you did something on your end, but the feedback stopped. So thank you. But we want to just look at that idea of going into conversation kind of armed for battle. Preconceptions, judgments, assumptions, and we can go take that further into generalizations and labels, and how that gets in the way of our ability to speak to each other in any civil way. And I mentioned the university protests right now, but the ongoing problem, I mean, the United States Congress is one of the, you could say, the best examples or the worst examples of a lack of good faith conversation. And it's not bilateral. I'm an independent voter. I'm not a member of the Democratic or Republican Party. We've mentioned that before. But for the most part, the Democrats seem to be acting in good faith, and a small number of Republicans are acting in bad faith. And a larger number of Republicans seem not to have the courage or the intestinal fortitude to stand up to this small number who seem to be controlling their party in Congress. And you can hear it in their conversations. So that's a long-winded version of our topic today.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, in fact, my feedback is gone, and I can hear yours coming back through. But if you don't hear the feedback, let's just keep going.
Okay, I don't hear feedback. So, take on what you said. Again, go back to. I think that everything we've said on multiple occasions, and it shows me just how much this is important and how we behave in our lives. Our identity, how you see yourself, because that to me still determines everything about engaging in conversation, and then what's playing in your mind when you sit down and have a conversation with someone. It's am I looking to learn? I'm looking to teach, or I'm looking to just be heard. I just want this off my chest because I want to make you aware. And I think that the politicians, it plays on that. And I also think that again, that govern our lives, system mainly of white supremacy keeps us fighting over the little things. Things that's, the color of your skin, your religion, your sex, all those things are other characteristics about you. And we tend to focus on those as opposed to the thing that somebody's human. And you're human first and foremost. I've often asked myself, what would it take if you're in a restaurant and it's lunchtime and you're in a downtown area and a human being stops, or just a human person stops in the middle of a restaurant and just collapse? How would people respond? Would it take for someone to respond? Would there have to be only staff that responds, everybody else just looks? Or would someone in the audience or someone else in the restaurant step up and alert the staff? I really wonder how long it takes. And I believe, and I could be mistaken, I believe how each person in the restaurant sees themselves as their identity will determine how quickly they respond. If it's a person that's on race, then they're going to look at it, and the person's race is on the ground and they hesitate. They may cause a 5-second delay. Or they may cause them to just back out immediately. Back out completely and say, I'm not going to be involved at all. Someone take care of it. It's not my responsibility. Or maybe say, oh, the same color as me. I'm going to respond immediately because that this establishment is not going to take care of them. I don't know what else is going to come to this aid, so I got to look out for my own kind. So all those thoughts as opposed to just a human being I'm looking for. Now, if you take, I believe you take a 4-month-old child and you see the person that sitting there on the middle floor crying and his mother's never around, I believe everybody would respond then in most situations because they will see that child being. I mean, most people will. And that's the interesting thing is that even the child's going to grow up to be whatever they identity. It's interesting where, again, in our own minds and realities that we create based on these false narratives that you write about in your book, how that can govern our behaviors. And like I said, the media doubles down on it even more so. Just quickly, and it's funny, I want to escape these things, and I try my best to shoot on YouTube different content. YouTube is allowing me now to modify my content even more so I can get suggestions that fit within what I'm interested in. I really love YouTube, but every now and then YouTube will take some past searches and throw it in that I'm not as interested in. And things have come to the time screen and suggestions to watch.
And one of those things just happens to be that again, Stephen A. Smith is in the news for going on the Rush Limbaugh show and basically saying that Donald Trump is basically right. It's, his assertion that Black people identify with how that he's going through all these criminal and involved in the courts, that he feels that Black people are now more sympathetic, more empathetic to him, because that's the part we are. And that's why I came out with the tennis shoe, try to really tap into that particular base. Like, let me speak to him in this. So again, it really shows his bigotry there, thinking that I can go to a race by just selling shoe and having in common their issues all. And so Stephen, they had to go, not wrestling, but I'm sorry, he went on a Channing show. And as a result, he's been destroyed. Everybody else in the media, different podcasts and folks calling him Uncle Tom and sellouts. Say, as far as been a plant on there and say they kind of disinformation. And my point I'm making again is that he feels that he's a spokesperson, and see, even Disney lives like he's a spokesperson, and he speaks for the majority of blackface. And he doesn't. He's as accurate as possible. But him representing the media, they want to continue to put that disinformation out there. So now I'll say it without Trump, because he's chosen to do the crimes he's done. So it's not like this one coming to him because he's Donald Trump. No, he's committed those crimes. He's made choices to be involved in everything. All 91 indictments he's doing. And now that becomes a discussion. Stephen A. Smith misstatement, and then talk to this statement, response to it. And now this becomes the rhetoric that people are consuming their minds with the food that they're investing into their minds. And the thing is, how can you grow productively as an individual, really be at your top game if those are dominating thoughts in your mind as well? Not Stephen A. With that statement Stephen A. is making, that's relevant in your initial 10 thoughts a day. That's a. And so I just sum it up saying, so now if I sit down now with you, have a conversation, and I fed my mind that kind of poison that I filled my mind with, and how all those biases are going to come into play, and I'm going to look at you those lenses, and we're not going to have much of a conversation at all as a result.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example. I know who Stephen A. is. I'm not a particular follower of his. I'm not a particular follower of too many people on social media, other than, I've mentioned before, Daniel Schmachtenberger. But that's a great example. And I think you used the word poison in there somewhere. I think you did. And if you didn't,
I did. Yes.
And I think that's it's a really important word, because to stay with your example, I don't know what Smith's educational background is and what he has really studied, but because he does have a platform that a lot of people listen to, he gets to kind of riff. And he's not the only one. There are lots of other people too. So men, women, black, white. So we, right now we're just using him as an example. And he gets to riff, and he gets to say it so that thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever it is, people hear him. And some, as we know, take what they hear on their favorite platforms as truth without doing any further investigation. And so that's a poisoning of the mind. It's one guy's opinion. And, I would say anybody that gets fed that should listen to the conversation between Professor Gilbert Morris and Daniel Schmachtenberger. It's about a 3-hour long conversation. Now, most people won't listen to it because it's 3 hours, but you can listen to it in 6 30-minute chunks, all right, if you want, or cut that or 12 15-minute, I'm my math is right, chunks, whatever it is, and take it in bits. That's what I do when I listen to longer things, because then you're really listening to a scholar who can point to and prove things to you, not because he's a scholar, but because he's done his work. And if you fact check him, he's legit. He's not giving you his opinion as fact. He's giving you some historical and current facts, and then he's interpreting them, which is his opinion. He makes those very clear, which if you listen to somebody on, again, with Stephen A., he's just giving his opinion and people take it as fact. And he comes in with certain preconceptions based on his personal experience, certain judgments of others, and certain assumptions. And if they're held up to a mirror, or they're taken into the truth lab and they're dissected, many of them don't hold up. And again, it's not just him. It's lots of people who have platforms on social media. And something that you said at the before you brought up that example, and I think it's really important, is, and it's something that's in my outline for, I don't know how many more weeks we'll be in conversation about conversation, but it's worth going right into it. What's my motivation for being in the conversation? Am I going to try to teach someone? Am I trying to change somebody's mind? Am I here to learn? Is it just a sense of curiosity? Because depending on which one or two of those is motivating me, I'm going to be in conversation in a very different way. If I think I know more than you and you need to learn and agree with me, I'm going to basically come into the conversation with a hammer and hammer away until I finally get it through your thick skull. I'm obviously not, for those of you who are listening, I'm not talking about King. I'm just using that language. And vice versa. If two people show up with their hammers, which happens a lot on a lot of talk shows, whatever you want to call them nowadays, on streaming podcasts and things, and they just come in with their hammers and they're not open to learning anything new. And that's the problem. Not that they're not occasionally provably correct, but if they're not in there being curious, if curiosity isn't at least a small part of your conversational toolkit, then you're doomed to ignorance the rest of your life. I mean, even that's a kind of a generalization. I hear myself saying that now, but I think that's true. If you don't have at least 10, 20, 30% of your motivation is curiosity, you're just doomed to being ignorant because you don't know everything right now. And if you're not curious, you're not going to learn it. So openness to shifting my worldview. Recent studies have shown that in terms of people who continue to develop, adults who continue to develop in their lives, and development, as you and I are using the word, is an expansion of one's perspective, the ability to take in more perspectives and understand them, whether you agree with them or not, but you can understand others' perspectives. So perspective taking, the ability to take multiple perspectives, is at the heart of development. But one of the traits of people who continue to develop, which is related to perspective taking, is a proactive perspective seeking. In other words, they don't just take new perspectives when they're surprised by them. Oop, new perspective, I should take a look at that. But part of their practice, their way of being in the world, and when they get up in the morning, is they're constantly seeking new perspectives. They challenge their current worldviews. Not because they think that they're wrong, but they're curious to see what else is out there. And it's in many ways, it could be a selfish trait. All right. I want to have as many different perspectives as possible, access to as many different perspectives as possible. So when I do get into a conversation, I don't make a fool of myself in public or even in private by being closed-minded. That's a selfish motivation. All right. But it's actually kind of a helpful one. It can also be selfless if I do the exact same thing, seek others' perspectives, because I want to understand other people and be able to embrace them. Same motivation, same practice rather, slightly different motivation. So the desire to seek different perspectives is a really important human tool. And another way to say it, which you said 10 minutes ago, is curiosity. All right. All right. If I'm curious, I seek other perspectives. I mean, curiosity, I want to learn new things too, which is not the same as perspective seeking. But, and we don't see that in much of our media, in much of our social media, and in much of our elected officials' discourse. And that's really problematic. If some of these folks got to go to the best institutions and were considered the best and the brightest, they should get their money back from wherever they paid their tuition, because they didn't get a good education, in my view. So take that.
Well, I'm in agreement with you, and I love the topic because, and this time, more importantly, communication is so important. And then again, the skill of it, so lacking. And you see it. And it comes across, like I said, you looking at Stephen A. and the personality like him, but him specifically, he used that his persona is to be, I know everything. Because he starts off by saying, I don't give a damn what people think about this. I don't give a shit about who I am. I don't care about your judgment of me. This is who I am. So he considers making that kind of bold statement at the beginning of the conversation that I'm not looking to learn anything. I'm to tell you something. And I really don't care how you feel about it. And to me, it's like, at this stage in my life, why would I even listen to somebody who's coming to me with that tone? It's like what value am I going to get from that conversation? Because your ego has already assumed the conversation. And now you're going to be wasting my manual time. Because now I'm mentally tuned out of you. I've judged you, which I make sure I work on not judging a person, but judging the behavior. Because everybody's on a different behaviors depending on what circumstances or their unless they're principle centered. And then looking at now, you talk about the political sides, how separate we've grown even more, and they keep pushing that. Like I saw a video of Mitt Romney, and he had a short, a gift that he had someone had a big turn into a big poster, and it was a pie chart. It was just these line graphs going across horizontally, showing that there's different levels. And this is where Congress used to be, showing a higher bar graph, higher bar, that we used to get legislation passed to get things done. And then he got to the end of almost the end of the actual graphic, and it was real low. I mean, barely above the horizontal line. And this is where we are now. We don't think that, and this is why I got Congress. I got Congress to make things happen. Would you agree with his agenda, a lot of his policies, and not the fact that he wants action to happen? I'm in alignment with that. Otherwise, there's a lot of conversations I have with people who I make alignment with as far as what they say, but then their actions show little to no action towards implementing what we're talking about. It's kind of like, man, I live in a house, and the upstairs there's on the ceiling, and you just keep saying, I wish it was raining, because the water that's coming through the whole ceiling. Instead of saying, let me go over here and fix this hole in the ceiling. And that's what a lot of people I see in that position where there's a hole, and they hate the fact that there was water coming in. They understand that water's going to cause damage and all things, but they're never going to take it. They haven't, I should say, take themselves to go fix the hole. I think it's someone else's responsibility. I didn't cause the hole. It's not my, it's the fault the hole's there. So since it's not my fault, I don't have the responsibility of fixing it. Now, understanding that they have to be accountable to the fact that if you want to live in a safe home, you got to go out and fix that hole. You got to go up there and fix it. and a lot of be accountable for their actions within the conversation. And that's where I'm saying that I think there's going to be comeuppance going forward, where these media personalities and paid for years and paid me dollars per year by these networks are going to phase out, because people when they start to grow realize there's other interesting conversations out here instead of the same conversation, that same personality. You've been wrong for 15 years, so like just because you're talking loud at ESPN behind you, whether it's Stephen A. Smith or the analysts on the show, you give your opinion about a game. You're wrong as much as the people in the barbershop are. So I need to listen to you, give me your opinion. Then you're getting facts off the internet. You tell with LeBron's game before, all the information was readily. It wasn't available to the average content everyday person who just use a Google search. So that's the shift that's happening. Unfortunately, going back to the original point you're having, I think most people who are easily to create a platform or trying to create a platform don't know what to say. And so they repeat other talking points talked about last week. They share or retweet a post that someone else up there, and they have enough information, haven't done enough research, so with the scholars as well. The scholars is going to give you data. And that's where someone like yourself, who's a critical thinker, and more importantly, you are looking to learn in your conversations, which I believe that makes you more attractive to most people who are going to engage in conversations, is that you get off the energy. And that's what I'm really learning as I got older. How important energy everything. And if I'm giving off energy of I'm interested, I look in your eye, and I don't send off judgment, like I'm looking at you and I'm judging the fact that you're not the same color or the same age or the same or the same income bracket or from the same town or the same kind of college or whatever it is that I'm judging you on. If I see stats in my mind and I see a person in front of me who this person's different than I am. What can I learn from? What's their background? Oh, okay. So like I remember I met a woman online through LinkedIn connection. And she told me that she had been in the actual orchestra. She had been an orchestra musician for the last 37 years, and she had traveled the world, playing. I forgot what she played, but I believe a violin or some strings, something like that. And I had never before met a person who played in orchestras. I had lots of questions. I was very curious, because it's like what kind of lifestyle did you have? Did you other musicians begin to ask the questions? Again, this is a 6-year-old white woman. I'm saying where quickly society tells us we're not going to have anything to talk. We don't have anything in common. But yet still seeing her human being and me as a person looking to learn something from the conversation, I knew that there was a lot I can learn from, and it was. We turned to have a great conversation. She referred me to other network, and she gave me strong referrals because I show generous, and I met some great people through her and her as a result. And so that just shows me again that if you're willing to come to a conversation with the intent, I call it connecting with intent, the intent of learning, and you're gonna, as the super communicator talks about, you have a loop in your conversation. He said there's 3 things to looping. Number 1, you ask a question. Then step number 2, and it should be a deep question. Like, what's your purpose in life? How did you come across that purpose? What made you decide to go into that particular field? Something where a person has to give you a story behind it. And then you repeat a summary of the answer from what you're listening and that you're fully engaged. And then that's the root. And then step 3 is you ask if I got it. If you actually loop in a conversation with somebody, that person's going to feel heard. That person's going to feel respected, seen as a human being. And to me, especially when you're someone who has been judged and you feel that society has judged you, you can tell the difference when you engage in a conversation with someone who hasn't judged you and saw you as a human being. And it actually feels good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on there. Something you said, the example of the big media companies. I want to begin with this point. The big media companies, who pay some of these celebrities, well-known faces, whether it's on sports or the news in general, whatever it happens to be, millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in a given year. And what that kind of a platform with that kind of salary does is it can convince someone, to stay with the Stephen A example, and not just to pick on him, but it can convince someone who's making like way more than an emergency room nurse who does some important things, or a primary grade teacher, or any number of other people that I think do really, a firefighter, any number of people
actually risking his life.
Yeah. To put out a fire that's not even in his own home or her own home. And, to get paid that much money, that kind of a situation leads, basically you're winning in the marketplace. You're good in front of a camera. You are just dissonant enough so you can create some controversy, which sells advertising. And the media companies are willing to give you money to do that. And because of the structure of our society, we pay talking heads like you and I are right now, but we're not getting paid for this, but we are talking heads. We pay folks who get, we pay them, lots and lots of money. Very different from what we're willing to pay teachers and firefighters and nurses and things like that. And it reminded me, when you brought that example up, a guy that was really influential to me, I don't know, 40 some odd years ago, but back when I was still a competitive middle distance runner. And I subscribed to Runner's World magazine. The medical editor of Runner's World magazine was a medical doctor, an MD named George Sheehan. And he ran well into his 70s. He was he would run races, and he typically beat guys like me. Like he was just, he was probably close to 30 years older than me, and he could still beat me. He's really fit. I think he died of prostate cancer. But he had a number of books out, and he was kind of a hero to a lot of people in the running world. In one quote that he had somewhere in his writing, I forget where it was now, but it's tied into what we're talking about. He said, and he was speaking about athletics, basically. He said, just because you're winning doesn't mean you're doing things right. Right? So just because someone is winning in the marketing, broadcasting, salary game and has a platform and a face and a name that's known and gets paid very well for it, doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. It just means they're good at bringing advertisers in. And when I say that, I check myself, say, okay, is that just sour grapes? Because no one's willing to pay me to talk into the microphone. And it's not. I mean, I say that jokingly because I value the work I do. Other people value it. I do my work in libraries and schools and different places, and it's fine. And with you and other folks. But it's important to remember that just because you're winning at something doesn't mean you're doing things right. One of the, and it's easy to assume, wow, my dream job, I'm making $1 million a year. I get to do my own show and I get to say things. And as you said, he said he doesn't care what other people think about what he has to say. Now think about all the traits you want in a conversation partner. One of them isn't that they don't care about what I have to say and what I think, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, so that's just part of this. I'll use the word sickness, but the society, the underpinnings of our culture and our society. The culture meaning, what we believe and the values we hold. The society meaning the actual infrastructure, as I use those two words. It's not a healthy society to begin with. I mean, that's a big part of what's in Healing America's narratives. We talk about violence and pharmaceuticals and obesity and depression and anxiety and for-profit healthcare, all that stuff, which we don't have to go into. But there are a lot of people, because that structure has made them wealthy, or at least it's kept them, their head above water, where they're not among the top 1%, but they're somewhere in the top 80%, the top 20%, I should say, that they're doing fine. You don't have to worry about their next meal or anything. And they assume that everything's okay because they're okay, because the marketplace rewards them for whatever it is they do. And the vast majority of them are good people, take care of their kids, they're involved in their communities. They are. I know a lot of them. But they get to ignore the underpinnings of the sick society. And as Krishnamurti said, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. He said that decades ago. I don't even know if he was talking specifically about the United States or just that's as a general truth. But what does it mean to be well adjusted to a society that's killing the planet, that has an undercurrent of people who can't afford healthcare? There's still, 2023, there were still 25 million Americans, despite the Affordable Care Act in 2010, which brought in about 25 or 30 million Americans who could then get health care. There are still in 2023, 13 years later, 25 million plus children, women, and men who don't have access to affordable health care in the United States. That's not a healthy society. Yet if you have your health care and you're making, a comfortable 6-figure salary or 7 or 8-figure salary, you don't have to look at that stuff. So you assume that everything is okay because it's working for you and people like you. And that goes across gender, goes across race, it goes across sexual identity, it goes across all of that. Not that everybody who's doing well doesn't care about anybody else. I'm not saying that. But it's easier to assume the system is okay if you're being well taken care of in the system, regardless of anything, any of those characteristics I just said. It's true for all human beings. And so when we get into conversation about the issue du jour, the issue of the day, everybody in the media and on social media, everybody in Congress is speaking about these, they're playing whack-a-mole, as I like to say. Let's keep covering everything that Donald Trump says in one of his trials, whether he's nodding off or not. That's on the front page of national newspapers. Who gives a shit? I don't need to know every nod he does, what color his tie was, what he says after he walks out. And what is that about? There are people dying in Gaza. There are people dying in this country for a lot of different reasons. So we play whack-a-mole with the daily symptoms, and very few people are willing to look at the underlying historical causes of what we face in 2024 America. That's because they have these preconceived notions or preconceptions. They have these judgments they've never tested. They have assumptions they don't even know are there. And if they're comfortable, many of them, they're not willing to look at these underlying causes and the history behind them. And learning what goes on in this trial today, what goes on in what the Supreme Court decides tomorrow, those are not unimportant, but they're little tips of ice crystals on the tiny tip of an iceberg that's massive, that's below the surface, that nobody looks at. And I think maybe a lot of people are afraid to look at, because it's mostly not good news if you look at it carefully and closely with an open mind that cares about all human beings. And so in conversation, especially, this is the joke I like to make, you and I can say whatever we want on this podcast. we want to go sit in a bar with our friends. We can say whatever we want over a couple of beers or, Sprites or whatever it is we drink. But for the people who have big platforms, who get paid millions of dollars to put their voices out there, to the people in the United States Congress and in the Supreme Court and to local legislatures, state legislatures, whose words count for something when it comes to what actually happens in this country, that they're willing to play whack-a-mole every day is frightening. That they don't see beneath the surface at all, or if they do, they're afraid to address it because they know they won't get reelected. Maybe, I don't know. I'll say one last thing. There was good news today in the Washington Post. They had on the front page of the Washington Post, they had a story, and they focused on one middle school, talk about preconceptions and assumptions and judgments, but one middle school in a small town, actually a city in I think Manchester, Connecticut, where after 2 years of navigating the problems with cell phones with kids in school, they now have these produced by I forget the name of the company, but they have these little magnetic pouches where the cell phones go in. Beginning of school day, they get locked. The kids carry them in their backpacks. They still have their own cell phones, and then they get unlocked at the end of the day. And there's other school districts around the country that are doing this as well. The Washington Post story focused on this one. And it's had an immense change on the students' abilities to focus, to interact with each other during recess and when they're walking in the hallways. The hallways are getting louder because there's interaction. Kids aren't walking down the hallway with a phone in front of their faces. And all of the fears of their parents that they wouldn't be able to contact their kid at any time of the day in an emergency have been erased, because like in the old days, if you had to get your kid, you called the school and the school would get the kid, right? So some of the preconceptions around cell phones and their usage, and we know the damage that they're doing now. There are people quietly in their local school districts making progress with some technology that works. And it's used in concerts and Broadway shows and stuff where you can't have a cell phone on in the venue because it disrupts the performance. But there were preconceptions about that and the right to have your cell phone. And it's being exploded now because the cell phones are getting in the way. So some people are out there doing some good work. That feels like a little bit of a non sequitur, but I think it's related to what we're talking about because the assumptions are being proven not true.
Absolutely. And talking about assumptions, preconceived notions and assumptions, I just want to read from Democracy Now! Posting that they posted 21 hours ago on their YouTube channel. And I've heard about this from another source, and it just really rings true to your point today. And it goes back, we talked about the last couple of weeks, how the media controls or attempts to manipulate and control behaviors of us. So basically, it said a group of more than 50 journalists and professors have written to the New York Times calling on a paper to commission an independent review of the report that members of Hamas committed widespread sexual violence on October. Numerous media outlets have raised some of the paper's reporting, which was written in part by freelance Israeli journalists who had liked multiple posts on social media advocating for violence against Palestinians. So basically, they're telling the New York Times to say, you got to go back and your story, because your story is incorrect. New York Times is letting down. And that story is getting more and more widespread that wasn't true, that Hamas wasn't raping the hostages. That's not a true thing. But again, it's creating a judgment in people's minds because you paint them as savages, then no one has an issue with you killing everybody. So you got to make up and give these stories. And that just shows right there that the media's not even doing, journalists are not even doing from a source like the New York Times that's not going to do a deep dive and really truly research and investigate their source before putting out a story that led thousands of people being butchered and slaughtered, and still being killed, and not only that, tainting the image, human population is criminal. And that's the time we live in, just to create the justice. So now we can be in a conversation. And if you say, well, that's what Israel is doing in Gaza, then people's immediate reaction is going to be, well, what about the situation? Should that be dealt with? That's be not should be taught, and you realize it's not even a true incident that happened. So that's why it's so important nowadays to really do your own research, do your own thinking. But I said the systems that govern our behaviors was working hours to try to live a false life. It's not us. And then when we're not feeding us false information mentally, us bad food physically, and forcing most people to say, well, just from work, which is what I don't want to do, and my family, which is getting on my nerves because I don't know how to relate to and communicate with them. My friendships are all waning out because people have been divided politically. So if we differ politically, we can't even talk. There's some communication. So I'm forced now to find what they believe, alignment, commonality with these talking heads who get opinions. I mean, think to see when it's $7.5 million a year to do what he does, and it's not even act. You're not writing about sport. There's nothing to do as a journalist that warrants that kind of salary. We all know that. So your journalistic ability, which he would spout as reasons to justify salary, we know that you're not getting paid for your journalistic ability at that level. You get paid because draw attention to this network and sell sponsorship, and they make money, and you're going to do whatever it takes to draw attention to the network, whether it's true statements, and in most cases, it's going to be sensationalized false statements. That's going to draw people to want to claim, want to say about you. But to your point, I will go quickly say this: that the winning part. See, I don't think he's winning. Not just my opinion that he's not winning. I'm saying I don't think he's winning either, because if you let your identity be your race, particularly your race is the black race, the worst thing that can happen to you is ostracized from that community. But I'm going to look at you as someone who's not true to the race, and that's the image he's creating right now. So no matter how much money he's making, he's alienating them from the people that he wants to feel as though I'm more connected to line with. They're seeing you as a totally different person. So yeah, you may financially, but your soul, that's literally what he's going to see. You're seeing your soul. And I believe he's starting to feel some of those consequences and relations of that upon that. Because no matter what you do, and I truly believe this, it's just a matter of time. Eventually, the universe is going to correct itself. It's going to be some balance that's going to come. It may be out of balance for years, thousands of years, but eventually, slowly, you're going to see things happen in the universe where there's injustice done. It's going to start doing things right than injustice. And that's just how the planet is. That's why no society that we look at, study throughout the years has ever survived. Eventually, that society is always going to crumble, and most more like within. And then finally, I forgot the gentleman who made the quote, but when you become, and I'm butchering the quote, sorry, to be well adjusted in an unjust, misaligned society, is there some good? Say that. You repeat the quote again, please.
Yeah, so it's from Krishnamurti, who was an Indian scholar, an Indian meaning from India, not a Native American. But Krishnamurti said, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
And see, that's exactly what it is. I'm sure that Stephen A. is going mental health, not to be affected by his family. To only have people in your life who see you as superficial money bag and not truly there, not into your life because of you are or your character. That has its weight on you. And eventually that mentally is going to weigh you down to the point where either you have to double down on your rhetoric and really say I don't care, to really puff that out or you're going to lose your mind mentally, so having mental breakdowns and have issues. One of those things is going to happen to himself out, and he's starting to see that it's different than when he's first churches sports and kept it strictly sports. So that's the only point I'm making, is that you think you win it financially, but eventually through your health, mental health, the universe will get its reckoning.
Yeah, and sometimes it's slow, but it happens. Yeah.
It happens, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say we talk about Donald Trump. I know we get ready to wrap up, but you look at everything he's doing. He dominates every news school, but it has 91 subpoenas. Who wants to live that way? And you can't. He's in court, and it's like you got to go for multiple crimes, and still run for president. Like, what kind of life does he have? I gotta get ready for the speech. I gotta put my Donald Trump costume back on and go to this rally and try to be energetic, be charismatic, try to get these people to vote for me. I gotta make phone calls, other people convince them politically to keep doing things, continue to push more people towards our way. Using border protection because I want to be able to make sure I implement. All those things. He can't be in real life. He can't be at the very least, even if he's narcissistic and such a sociopath, that a psychopath, he could have aggressive feelings of others around him. I'm other people don't want to be around him. He's not a pleasant person around. So again, he's losing in accounts. But we reached part of the show. We got started late, but I know. Forgive me for going over. But I want you to kind of lay out with you some solutions that the folks prepare themselves now for conversations. Won't be judgmental and making those assumptions.
Yeah. So two basic moves, which we've probably mentioned over the last 2 years or so in some other contexts. But the external move is to, when you listen to somebody on social media, a video, or if you watch and listen to the news and news commentary, first distinguish between those two things: what's commentary and what's journalism. But listen for assumptions. Listen for things that somebody says as though they're true that they're not necessarily true. Kind of do a litmus test on those people who you are your sources for information. That's one. The more important move, because you're not going to change those people, the more important move is listen to yourself, whether you're talking to your kids, your parents, your friends, your colleagues, your teachers, your students, whatever your relationships are. Listen to what you say. I have to listen to what I say. And begin to listen for anything you say that's kind of a preconception or a judgment or an assumption that you really don't know if it's true or not. You want to believe it's true, but you really don't know. And stop saying it as though it's true and go out and test it somewhere. Do some research. Find out if that assumption is true or not, if that preconception is accurate, if that judgment is accurate. And if it's not accurate, stop doing it. So start here. Again, you can test it on the talking heads, and even in written journalism, you can read some things and look for preconceptions and judgments and assumptions. But the most important place to do it is internally.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Definitely thank you for the insightful, necessary, and time-worthy topic. And we want to wrap up by discussing who we feel are folks who have shown the fully human characteristics either before, either ancestors or currently people that we actually know and connected to. And I'll go first with a couple of the person I believe that shows what it means fully human. And I may even say this person's name but I want to mention them again if not top of mind. And that is Malcolm X. Top of mind because a lot of people quotes of his work. Like he was always looking on learning. He's went through several different transitions in life as a result of receiving information, and that had significant change on him as an individual. To me, that's They're fully deaf of someone who's fully human to go through those four different types of changes in his life, from being a person who was a criminal because he didn't know any better than how he was raised, to becoming fully into the nation, identifying heavily as black and having that identity there, and really sacrificing, going all in, and then traveling to Mecca and realizing that, wow, all white people are not the devil, all white people are bad, and be willing to admit that and shift that, and realize that there are human beings out there, so I can't judge you by the color of skin. Go through that progression, and then they only focus one speech or one area of his life. I look at a man who's grown, says quite a bit as far as who they are, but at the same time, him as a human being, to me, walking testament of who I've always worked to pattern my life after, and look at information and can constantly growth-minded as a result, realizing that all I can each day is I learn every day how much I don't know every day. Yeah. So Malcolm X in that context.
Yeah. Thanks for that example. His last major transformations got him killed. So it was people didn't like that he transformed once again. So I'm going to go with actually somebody that I know personally. I saw last Friday night. I went down to my alma mater, my high school alma mater, where I both attended high school and where I taught and coached basketball for 13 years. And it was a Hall of Fame dinner. One of my players got inducted. He was a leading career scorer. But I'm going to mention, his name was Sam Bird, but I think I mentioned him last week. But also present was the guy who was my teacher and my coach in high school, Jerry Houston. And he played basketball. He was a senior co-captain at St. John's University in Joe Lapchick's final year there in 1964-65 season. And Jerry and I have known each other now for, like, I hate to say this, like 50 some odd years. He's 82 now. He's still kicking, still one of the friendliest people, one of the most supportive people I know. He has a large family now of kids, grandkids, and great grandkids. Is that right? Yeah, great grandkids now. And he's just a good guy. Just, he lived a life. He coached himself. He taught high school, and then he went into the business world. But he's back coaching with his youngest son, who's a varsity basketball coach himself now. He works as an assistant with his son. But just a really good guy, great sense of humor, who has been a good friend to me for over 50 years now. So that's Jerry Houston.
Okay. All right. Well, Reggie, this has been a great show. Definitely appreciate you again for taking the time out to look and find this particular topic we can now discuss and bring this conversation every week. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, listening audience, for tuning in again to the episode of the Fully Human Connections podcast with each Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The next Wednesday, I wish everybody happiness, love, and let's all continue to strive to be fully human. Thank you.